Pokemon Black Bolt and White Flare are on their way in just a couple days, and so I thought it'd be a fun time to go over what the top 10 cards of the set are, and also what I think is going to be the cards that you want to be picking up and how many of them you should be picking up, in my opinion, so that way you're not wasting money getting extra cards and other stuff that you don't really need if you're thinking about just buying the singles for the set. So if this is something that you like and want to see more of on the channel, because it's not something I typically do, be sure to leave a like on it so I know, and leave a comment down below on how you would rank the cards and if you think I got anything right or wrong. Before we get into the top 10 though, I do want to go over a couple honorable mentions. And these are cards that I think are good, but just not good enough to make the list. This set as a whole doesn't have a ton of stuff that's super powerful, but the cards that are good in it, I think are pretty impactful for our current meta and going forward. The first card on our honorable mentions list is going to be Archeops. I think this card is really, really cool and will be a fun deck. I just don't think it's something that's strong enough to really make the top 10 of this list or anything like that. But it has my favorite card art in the set, so it's something I wanted to mention. And I think the ability to go like double Devo in the same turn, or even use a switch into a second Archeops and be able to go like Devo, Devo, and then attack is really, really interesting and something that could be really powerful going forward. So definitely something to keep an eye out on and probably pick up a copy or two of if you're looking to, you know, just play the deck as just its own thing. You'd probably run it as like a 4-3 line or something like that. Try to rare candy around. It only sucks because you have to use a fossil, but it has some of the best card art in the whole set, in my opinion, so it's worth talking about on that front. The next card in the honorable mentions is going to be the Ignition Energy. I think this card is also really fun and really cool, and I think it will be kind of impactful, but I just don't think it's going to make enough of an impact in that it's really used in enough decks to make as much of a difference as it probably should. I think this card is really interesting, but as a whole, like I said, I don't think it's going to be all that great. And yeah, the main reason why I'm putting it on this list is that it's going to make Wugtrio playable again. And when that's a thing, that's enough for me to talk about a card, because I love playing Wugtrio. It's probably one of my favorite like random rogue decks. That's just kind of, it was good and now it's bad, but with Ignition Energy, it's going to become good again. So that's really exciting. For me, probably not for the people that have to play against me. Going into the final card of our honorable mentions, and this might be the first card to make people upset, but that's going to be Meloetta EX. Meloetta EX, it got a ton of hype, and I think it's a card that is really kind of getting overhyped, because I'm not sold on this card. I don't think it's going to be very good, and the main reason for that is that the ability to attack on your first turn is really, really cool. And being able to not just use the attack, but any attack is really cool, because yes, you can use things like Turbo Energizer to speed up a whole bunch of energy from your deck. You can also look for cards, or like you can go for a TM Evo and kind of advance your game state, which will feel really, really good. The problem is that when you're going first, you're not going to have supporters that you can use unless you're running a whole line of Carmines. So if you want to run Carmine to discard and go early game, then that's fine, but you're kind of committing very heavily to that, and so most decks don't want to do that. So like, it's not going to help Dracopult, it's not going to help like the major decks in the format right now, where like if you're going first, you're not going to be able to use any of your supporters. If you're having to commit your Nest Ball to get this, you kind of have to pray you open it early, and then also the problem is like you have to also find your TMs as well, which you're not going to be able to do because you don't have Arven, and you can run the new item card that gets you your TMs, but the problem is like, again, all these cards are only good if you went first and get them, and if they don't, then they're kind of just dead in your hand. So they become a little bit worse, and that's something to definitely keep in mind going forward with this card. I think it's just a kind of a problem to build around, but if it becomes better, then that'd be pretty cool, and I wouldn't be upset about it. But yeah, that's why it goes into my honorable mentions. Going in at number 10, though, I'm going to say Reshiram EX takes the number 10 spot, and that's because it's pretty much just Zekrom, except Fire has way less support in the format right now, and there is the new Emboar, which will not be making my list, but outside of Emboar being able to power this card up, which doesn't even feel that good because it's a late game card anyway, Fire doesn't really have much support right now, and most decks that can play it probably won't want to, because Charizard just does the same thing it does, and this card can do a little bit more damage than Charizard, but Charizard's not, you know, struggling for late game damage. Maybe that'll change when we see Megas hit the format, but even then, I don't think this card will be that relevant outside of being able to hit like Mega Venusaur for weakness. So outside of that, there's not really decks that want to play this. Ho-Ho Box can play it, but that deck's not really that great either, and so just adding this to the deck I don't think will make all that much of a difference. So I would recommend getting like a copy of this card just so that way you have it, but outside of that I don't think it's really worth picking up, and I think that it's gonna be good, but we're kind of hoping as this format goes on it will get better. Going into number 9, we're going to have Tool Scrapper. Tool Scrapper is a good card, but I think right now it's just not as impactful in the format. But the reason why this card made the list and is coming in at number 9 is because it's a card that's going to be really good for formats to come. And it does still have play right now. I think the main thing hurting Tool Scrapper is the fact that some people are still going to want to run Jamming Tower instead of this card. There's a debate on which one's better. But I think this card is still good right now. Obviously, it has play into Guardy. It can remove people's Sparkling Crystal. So that's going to force Goldango. It's going to force the Dragapult into playing the Turbo Energizer rather than, or not Turbo Energizer, the Neo Upper Energy. It's going to force them to play that over Sparkling Crystal because they don't want to get their Crystal Tool Scrappered. So that's always important and like something that's good. You could, you know, kind of play around that as well. So there are things as well as the EV box that wants to use Sparkling Crystal. So that's going to make Sparkling Crystal and Hero's Cape, which is another card that has kind of been seeing a little bit more play, go down in value. And that's always good. But then also, like, if you're not getting value out of it, obviously it's just a dead card. I would recommend picking up 4 copies of this card anyway, so that way you have them for future formats. But I think this card is good. Also, the fact that it's searchable feels really good as well. So definitely a good card. Probably going to run one of in a good amount of decks. And as formats develop, I think this card gains even more value. As of right now, I'd put it at 9. But this is definitely a card that could rise as the format kind of develops. Going into number 8, we have the Prism Energy. Prism Energy is a very interesting card. And I think that it's very similar to me, in my opinion, of Tool Scrapper, where right now there's not a ton of decks that really want to utilize it, because things like Dragapult already use Luminous Energy, and you need Luminous Energy for not just the Monkey Dories, but also in order to kind of be able to use them with Dragapult and stuff like that. But there are other decks. This is actually another card that works in Ho-Ho Box, so maybe that deck will become better with time, and as well as like other Armarouge variants. But as of right now, I think this card is another one that will be better as the formats develop, but is only alright right now. So I'm keeping it at number 8, but I do think it's a card that definitely will gain value over time. I would recommend picking up 4 copies of this card as well, just because, like I said, anytime there's a new energy card, you're going to want to get 4 copies of it, and as well as the fact that it is going to become better as the format kind of develops and moves on. So I think it's definitely a card to look into and to pick up, so be on the lookout for that as well. Going into number 7, we have the Brave Bangle. Brave Bangle is a really cool card. It's a reprint of Silver Bangle from the earlier eras, and this card's really good because what it does is that it makes your single prize Pokemon do 30 more damage into EX Pokemon. This is really huge because it makes single prize decks like much more relevant, and that's very important because they're kind of struggling right now. But it makes Typhlosion, which is already a pretty playable deck, actually really good because you're able to hit for 320 now with just this, and for having a Victini on your deck, on your bench, which allows you to be able to knock out things like the aforementioned, you know, you can knock out Guardy, you're going to be able to knock out the Dragapult, things like that, much easier now, which feels really good, as well as making it much easier to knock out things like Charizard, as well through having other resources. It's also going to be searchable by Secret Box, which feels really good, as well as other cards, so it's going to be really good. But not just in Typhlosion, it makes Ancient Box a lot better, which is already a pretty good deck right now, as well as it makes Festival Lead playable, which is always very exciting. So I definitely think this card is going to be very, very impactful. I don't think it's more impactful than the other cards we have on this list, but I do think it's very, very strong, so be on the lookout for that card. I would definitely pick up at least 2 copies of this card, so that way you have them if you're looking to play single prize decks. If you're not, then you can skip it, but I think it is very powerful, and especially, like I said, going into future formats, you never know when a good single prize Pokemon is going to pop up, and Brave Bengal is always super strong. Going into number 6, we have the Electrike, and I think this card is really, really good. And it's kind of going to be the thing that revitalizes Miraidon. It's the Dino Motor ability, being able to move an electric energy from your discard pile to one of your benched electric Pokemon is just such a strong ability for not only Miraidon, but other electric decks. And again, this is another card that, as of right now, really just benefits Miraidon, but we'll see as formats develop, this card become better and better. Now, you can make the argument that Joltik's still better, but I actually like this card a little bit more for Miraidon than Joltik, and being able to play like a more solid Miraidon deck rather than Joltik box, because I find that Joltik box isn't as consistent, and it's a little bit rough when you start losing your energies, as where this keeps you consistent throughout the entire game. And Miraidon gets a lot of different tools, very similar to how we talked about how Ho-Oh box is getting a lot of tools. I think Miraidon gets it way better right now, and just kind of helps this whole system work a lot better. So I definitely pick up 4 copies of this, as well as the basic thing. I forget what this evolves off of. But you're definitely going to want both of those. I think they become very, very, very powerful. And definitely want to get those if you're going to be playing Miraidon. And you're probably just going to want them in general, because eventually electric Pokemon with Miraidon or not are still going to become relevant in the format. So you're definitely going to want it for that. Going into number 5 is going to come right off the Electrike pick, and that's going to be Zekrom EX. I think this card is very, very powerful, because it functions in Miraidon the same way that Raichu used to, where you're able to have a late game closer, because if this card is revenge attacking, it gets 30, or I believe it gets 50 more HP. I'm not looking at the card right now, but it gets 50 more damage for every prize card your opponent's taken. So if your opponent's remaining on 2 prize cards left, you actually get to hit for 340, which is enough to knock out even Charizard EX. So this card comes in as a really good late game attacker, and with Miraidon and your Dino Motor, you're always going to be able to power it up. So Miraidon's play line kind of becomes like go second, turbo out all your items, make an Iron Hands on like turn 1 through electric generators. You're going to be able to bring that in, take a knockout, take your first 2 prizes, be able to use Miraidon or even get a second hands attack off as you're using that. Then you just get like 1 energy on Zekrom. Your Iron Hands gets knocked out. You can promote something else, whether that's a Tapu Koko, whether that's a Zorora to snipe the bench, or your other Miraidon, whatever you want that to be. You put that up, take your other 2 prize cards, and then they knock something out. You get to bring in your Zekrom, Dino Motor to it, attach, and if you already had 1 energy on it, then you just bring it into the active, knock out anything that's in front of you, and just close out the game super consistently. So I think this card's going to help the deck out a ton, as well as just support other electric Pokemon as the game develops and goes on. So I think this card's going to be very, very impactful, and a lot better than I think some people are giving it credit to. I would definitely pick up 2 copies of this just for your Miraidon deck. You'll probably only run it as a 1 of that in that deck, but I definitely recommend getting 2 copies for future decks and things like that. Going into number 4, and in this top 4, I think these are going to be the absolute most impactful cards going forward. And that's going to be at our 4th slot, Genesect EX. I think Genesect is really, really powerful. It does help metal decks as we go forward. Like I've been saying a lot in this kind of video, I think a lot of these cards become better as the formats develop and go into the future. But right now, this is like it from the kind of top 6 onwards. This is kind of where the meta is going to develop in like on day 1 release. And Genesect EX makes Goldango so much better, and Goldango's already a very strong deck in the format. It just needs a couple different pieces to kind of help it out, and I think Genesect is the way to do that. Genesect is really powerful because it improves your going first boards, where you're able to set up just a whole bunch of gimme ghouls, and it doesn't really matter if you draw into your Goldangos or not, because you can Nest Ball, go Genesect, use Genesect, find yourself double Goldango, and then start plussing yourself up a whole bunch of cards, even if you have a pretty bad hand, even if you just find Ultra Ball, like whatever it takes to get your Genesect out. is going to make the game so much easier for you. So I think that that is going to improve Goldango's consistency a lot, as well as just being really, really good. Like I said, it helps protect your early game boards, and so that's definitely something that's really good for Goldango, as well as the fact that Air Balloon is in this set, and that's going to also bolster Goldango. So I think that card's going to become very, very, very powerful. And this card just making that deck even better is why I'm putting it at my number 4 slot, as well as the fact that it will make other metal decks stronger later. Being able to find things like Matang in order to improve your metal makers and things like that is always really good, because Matang's a very fun card to be able to use. So definitely keep that in mind. I would get myself 2 copies of this if you're planning on playing Goldango, and if not, I think still 2 copies is totally fine. Going into the number 3, and the top 3 I think are the absolute most impactful cards, and number 3 is going to be Hilda. Hilda is very, very important for this upcoming format because it's our direct answer to Jellicent, since if you're item locked and can't use tools, you're going to be in a position where what Hilda does is that it's going to be able to get you an evolution Pokemon and an energy. This is really important, especially for a deck like, for let's say Goldango. It will get you your pieces, which is another way to get around item lock, as well as your Genesect EX. But one of the other things is that for Dracopult, it will be able to get you your Neo Upper energy, as well as your Dracopult, or it'll get you your Neo Upper and the Drekloak if you need to get yourself more draw. So it does get you out of item lock situations, and that's going to be very, very important, because with Genesect coming out, you're going to be stuck even more than you already were dealing with Badoo. But even for other decks that aren't using Jellicent and are using Badoo, you're still going to have answers to that, and having answers to item lock feels really, really good. So Hilda's going to become much more important. I would get yourself 4 copies of this card, and you want to make sure that you're able to kind of hold on to these. You're probably only going to run like 1 or 2 in your deck, but you're going to want to have 4 just for future formats and things like that. It's probably a card you're going to be playing in most of your deck, so you're going to want to just own extra copies of it as well. And so, yeah, it's just super good, especially too, like I said, the fact that you can get non-basic energy is super important for a lot of different decks. That means you can grab yourself Luminous if you need to. You can grab yourself the Prism. You can grab an Ace-Spec energy. It doesn't really matter, so it's super, super powerful. So definitely taking the spot at number 3. Coming in at number 2, I think, is the card we just started to talk about, which is Jellicent EX. And Jellicent EX is super powerful. It makes Guardy even better, which is a crazy thing to think about because Gardevoir is already super strong. But I think one of the things it does as well is not only does it make Gardevoir even stronger, but it also changes how you have to play around Gardevoir, because they could be playing this or without it. And so like one version you're playing against like a super strong item lock, and then in the other version you're playing against like normal Turbo Guardy. And both are really bad, but both require you to play differently and kind of build your deck differently. So I think variety is also going to make Gardevoir even stronger. But just this card alone, being able to item lock by just being in the active feels really, really bad. It's just a card that you're going to kind of have to deal with, and it's going to kind of force you to struggle your way out of. But with that being said, I think that it's going to also make us see a rise in cards like Iron Bundle, so that way we can push it out of the active. Either way, though, it's going to make Guardy really, really strong, and this card is just going to be around even when Guardy rotates. So you're definitely going to want 2 copies of this, maybe even more. But yeah, you're going to want 2 copies of this and the Frillish, so that way you have them, you can evolve, all that kind of stuff. It's super broken, and it was very close to taking my number 1 spot, but for those of you who have been keeping track and been wondering where this card was on the list, it's coming in at number 1, and that is Air Balloon. And the reason why Air Balloon is taking my number 1 spot over something like Jellicent EX, even though Jellicent EX is a very, very close contender, is because Air Balloon is generic. You can play it in any single deck. It doesn't matter. It's going to open up deck building a lot because of the fact that right now there's a good amount of cards that are 2 retreat cost that are non-basics that become opened up because of this card. And just being able to have free retreat options feels super, super good, and Air Balloon being splashable into any deck feels great. Now, yes, like we talked about earlier, Tool Scrapper is in this format, and so you'll have to be careful about that, as well as the fact that, you know, there is Jamming Tower and things like that. But with that being said, even if you just have to use it for a turn, you don't even get to use it all the time, it's still super, super impactful, and it's just better rescue board, and rescue board's already super strong. So there's a lot of different decks that are going to want to utilize this. The fact that it's splashable, and the fact that we're going to have it for a long time going forwards in our formats, like multiple rotations, it's going to feel super, super good. I think this card is kind of going to stick around a lot longer than a lot of these other cards as well. Like, Jellison is good, and I think post-rotation, it's still going to be good, but it's going to be much less now that the Guardi EX is rotating. So I think that's one of the things as well. Like, this card is just going to be so good for so long. It opens up a lot of deck building options. It helps so many cards move out of the active. It also makes Zoroark EX better because you now don't have to play with the like, you don't have to play with End's Castle. You can just throw an air balloon on Zoroark and never have to worry about it getting stuck in the active, which you run End's Castle if you're playing a Zoroark deck. But the fact that it opens up Zoroark as just a trade, like, draw engine also is super good, because you don't have to worry about it getting stuck in the active, which is part of what I mean when I say, like, not only is it splashable, but it opens up a lot of other deck building opportunities that you didn't really want in the past. But yeah, that's going to be my top 10 for the set list, guys. Be sure to let me know what you think of the list. Be sure to let me know what you would rank the list. If I missed out on any cards that you think are going to be really good that should have made the list or the honorable mentions, or if you think that I got it totally right, totally wrong, be sure to leave a link, a like, and be sure to let me know what you think down in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Peace.